Welcome to the LowCarbUSA podcast, where we seek to inspire you to help us build this community. I'm Doug Reynolds.
And this is Pam Devine.
Okay. The next part is make sure you're adding salt, 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 salt. When you remove the carbohydrates, you dehydrate, and the human body uses salt to manage, regulate blood pressure, thirst, and electrolytes. And the human body can deal very efficiently with an excess salt, but it doesn't tolerate a deficiency very well. And if you're deficient in magnesium, calcium, potassium, it's usually because you're sodium deficient. And then your body's exchanging, it's hanging on to the salt, the sodium, and getting you to pee out or poop out the magnesium. Salt is very important, and you avoid a lot of what's called the keto flu with salt. So how do we initiate this in practice? We start with a 36-hour calorie fast. That's something new in my practice. I've adopted that from Jason. So we start with a 36-hour calorie fast. It's the fastest way to reset. It sucks. It's miserable. Especially the worst time for me is that first morning, if you've got a whole day the next morning. But if you can make it through to lunchtime or possibly dinner time, there's a euphoria that comes in when you get into ketosis. So my starting point, you don't have to, but my recommendation is a 36-hour calorie fast. What does that mean? It means you don't eat or drink anything with calories. And you can consume any zero-calorie liquids. They're fine, as much of them as you want to. And I encourage my patients to drink broth. And you can drink vegetable broth. You could drink chicken broth if you want to, but for the vegetarian diet, you want to drink vegetable broth and add salt to it. So that's the way you get adequate salt in.
And is this for patients just when they first come in? Is it patients that you're trying to do this to avoid having surgery? What sort of patients are we targeting here?
This is at initiation.
Okay, when they first come in.
This is when you first come in and you've been eating the standard American diet and you say, I want to start this process. It's a deep dive. You're going to go to the deep end of the pool and you're going to jump in. And the deep dive is the 36-hour calorie fast.
Right, but I mean, most of your patients have initially come to you asking for surgery, right?
Some of them more and more now are coming for diabetes treatment because they're already doing keto.
Okay.
And I've now I've always had a lot of patients who are vegetarian. And remember this, and this is so important. I understand that I'm a surgeon, but you don't do surgery in lieu of a diet. You do surgery to augment, to improve, or to manage, to sustain the dietary changes these people are making. And that's a big difference. You know, I tell people this, that it's so sad that the group of people in the obesity space that know the least about obesity are the surgeons that do bariatric surgery, because they're so good at stopping you from eating, they don't understand why you became fat in the first place. So you've got to address the cause, which is your addiction to carbohydrates, before you do something to lose the weight. Everybody comes in obsessed about weight loss, and they're not willing or prepared or understand what they need to do from a dietary perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, really.
So,
that's why I just wanted to get a clarification on.
Yeah. No, so take my surgery out of the equation on this. Any person that comes in with your diabetic, fat, PCOS, I see a lot of PCOS patients now. There are fertility clinics that are sending me their patients to do the PCOS management part, or the gestational diabetes side when they're pregnant, or the autism side when they're at risk for having an autistic baby. They've had them before, or whatever it may be. So what I start them out with, if you say, okay, I want to do a vegetarian form of this diet, that's my starting point. And it also separates the serious people from the people that are just dicking around with us. So a simple question that I ask my patients when they first come in, and you can try this for yourself. I say, okay, pretend you're on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, because the Atlantic Ocean is nicer than the Pacific. And the boat is sinking. And you look up and there's two islands. You can swim to one island or the other, but you can't swim between the islands. And you're going to be on those islands for a long time. One island, as you look up, only has animals on it. And the other island only has plants on it. And you know that's what you're going to be living off. Which island are you going to choose to swim to? And obviously, I know
Animals.
you go into the animal plant. But a lot of my patients, for a variety of reasons, say no, they're going to swim to the.
They're going to the plant one. Yeah.
I don't want to say no, don't swim to that one, swim to the animal one. I'm saying, okay, here's what we're going to do on the animal, on the vegetarian, on the vegetable or the plant island, and that's kind of the principle behind this diet. Does that make sense? Or this eating plan. So the first part, the first 36 hours is a 0-calorie fast. And what it does is, for someone like yourself, if you were just eating the standard American diet, but you didn't have illnesses yet, you would get into ketosis very quickly. It helps to sensitize you to insulin just a little bit. And it initiates that process whereby you lose your hunger. And that's what Jason uses quite a bit. And I really like the way he does that. And most people can tolerate a 36-hour calorie fast. When you think about Muslims, they go through Ramadan, which is 40 days of 24 hours or 23 hours. Okay. So once you've done the 36 hours, we then start with a 5 to 7 day keto cleanse. Now, I hate the word cleanse because everyone thinks that the colon should be cleansed. That's bullshit. The colon is the dumping ground. Okay. But I've used this word keto cleanse because it kind of sounds sexy. What does it mean? It means for 5 to 7 days, you are eating pure leafy vegetables and salads. No animal products, no starch. So it's your vegan diet. It's your standard vegan diet. It's your keto vegan diet. No starchy stuff. No beans, no pumpkins, no rice, no potatoes, no grains, but no animal products. No honey, no eggs, no cheese, no nothing. And you do that for 5 to 7 days, but you want to add salt to that, and you always, always, always want to add as much what I call pressed oils as you can tolerate. Just to back up a little bit, the way oils from plants are created is 2 different ways. You either heat them up, which is typically what we do with seed oils. We heat extract the oil, which is a very destructive form of extracting oil, and it creates a lot of polyunsaturated, unhealthy fats. We used to think that margarine and those fats were healthy. They're not. They're very unhealthy. Pressed oils are where you take an olive, you take an avocado, you take a coconut even, and you squeeze the oil from it. So there's no real heat involved. And this is a plant that is very rich, or plant or a fruit that is very rich in oil, and all you're doing is extracting the oil by squeezing it, by pressing it. And therefore it retains all the natural properties of the oil. Whether it's a monounsaturated oil or a polysaturated or a monounsaturated oil or a saturated oil, that's your olive oil, that's your coconut oil, the avocado oil being somewhere in between. The seed oils are not healthy because of the way that we extract it. And certainly what I call the industrial oils, the Criscos and things like that, those you can take out and lubricate your car's engine with, but don't put them in your mouth, okay? That's what Crisco is.
Yeah.
It's an industrial oil during the Second World War that people say, tastes good, let's eat that. Having said that, so your first 5 to 7 days, ideally 7, but if you can tolerate 5, is a pure leafy vegetable vegan diet with a high volume of oils. Now, we understand that for those 5 to 7 days, it's going to be very little protein. You're going to be okay. You're going to get a tiny fraction of protein, maybe a tiny fraction of carbohydrate, but a massive amount of oil. So you're really fat adapting your body, which is what we want. Once you've gotten into that 5-day cleanse, then we go alternate days. The first alternate day after your 5 to 7 is what I call my full plant day. The full plant day includes all vegetables, but no rice or potatoes or starchy vegetables, the very heavy starchy vegetables. But here's the interesting thing, and people will argue with me about this. This is where I, to a certain extent, adopt a little bit of the diet doctor side, where you can have some beans, you can have some tofu. Yes, there's a significant amount of total carbohydrates in that food, but it's highly enriched with a lot of vitamins and protein. So it's a good source of protein. And unfortunately, in the vegetarian diet, the really only effective vegetable source of protein. But the more you minimize your starchy vegetables, the better. Never rice or potatoes. What I have found, though, is that very, very few people come home and, again, after a rough day, pig out on a pile of beans. If that's you, we want to be super careful about it. But for the most part, you can include some starchy vegetables, primarily with a higher protein content. And when you're eating a full plant diet, it also includes what I call renewable animal products. I understand the aversion to killing animals and eating them. But when you're eating eggs and cheese and maybe some cream, so it's the dairy products, which is milk from a cow or a goat or a sheep, and eggs, those cover a huge spectrum of readily bioavailable nutrients and energy, particularly protein and healthy fat. So you're getting all of your essential proteins. Remember, an egg becomes a chicken. It isn't a chicken yet, so you're not killing anything because it hasn't been fertilized, but it's got everything that is required to make a chicken, which means that it's got the full nutritional complement to make a chicken. So you've got all your amino acids, all your essential fatty acids, and it's a very healthy source of supplements for a vegan diet. And then the same is true for cheese and potentially cream. If you're going to drink some coffee, you can throw some heavy cream in there. So on those days, on the day after your keto cleanse, you eat a full plant diet with renewable animal products which are high in protein, high in fat, in the right proportions. And you do that for one day. The next day is again a leafy plant, nut, seed, and oil diet. So you have your salad or your vegetable diet. You can put it in a wok. You can do whatever you want to. You can add nuts and seeds and oils. So every other day is going to be a vegan diet followed by a vegetarian renewable animal product diet. And if you do that from a nutritional perspective, you can maintain your vegan roots, but supplement with healthy, renewable animal products. And at as close to a healthy vegan you can be, that is it. I cannot condone, from a pure health perspective, anything more isolationist in terms of animal products than that. So the compromise is to include renewable sources of animal products, particularly the eggs and the cheeses and the dairy. And in that way, you can actually minimize the starchy vegetables and yet still get your protein and your fat in. I don't mind on those full plant days to eat a little bit, but you want to be super careful about your addiction to carbohydrates, and never any grains. I don't care if it's quinoa or corn, you stay the hell away from the grains. They have gluten in them, they have a lot of antigens in them, and they have a ton of endorphin activating carbohydrates in them. Now, let's go to one phase above that. And well, let me just, before I complete that, the renewable animal sources are butter, whole milk, heavy creams, eggs, with the yolk being the healthiest part, which are great to supplement so you don't have to go to GNC. Cheese of any kind, full cream preferably, not skim milk, but the carbohydrate content of those products does count. The next phase up, and there are a lot of vegetarians that are comfortable doing this, which is not eating animals from the earth, but they're okay eating fish and seafood. And even if you're just eating a piece of fish once a week, twice a week, especially if it can be the fattiest fish you can possibly eat, the Pesce vegetarians, which are fish, seafood eating vegetarians, you don't have to do it very often. And for example, Bill Clinton, I don't know if he's still doing it, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a long conversation with him when he had those scares with his heart attack. And that's basically what he considered himself to be, is a vegetarian who eats fish from time to time. Once or twice a week, he'll eat fish. And if you're eating fish and maybe some of the renewable animal products, the eggs and the cheese, you're getting about as perfect a nutritious diet as you can possibly have when it encompasses and includes vegetables. Sure, you can go toward the more carnivorous side, but if you're going to call yourself a vegetarian, the Pesce vegetarian is the healthiest way to be, or the renewable protein source or renewable animal product source. Those are the two vegetarians that I think are reasonable to do. And even if you're just doing that fish or seafood once or twice a day, this is what boggles my mind. I get the vegans who take a fish oil pill. Well, where did that fish oil come from? Did the fish poop it? Is there a fish oil tree out there? No, it's not. That came from the death of a fish. So don't tell me that you're a vegan if you're taking fish oil. You're eating the products of a dead fish. So why not eat the whole damn fish? Don't be altruistic in that regard. Fish oil comes from a fish. That's why it's called fish oil. Okay, so just a simple little thing. Now, if you manufacture it in a plant, it's called an MCT oil or a different type of oil, but you're looking for the 3 omega oils, and those you don't get adequately in a vegetarian diet. Plus, the full spectrum, particularly the 9 essential amino acids. And the goal is to get into ketosis as quickly and for as long a period of time as you can be. You really don't want to come out of ketosis. That's why we add the nuts, the seeds, the oils to everything we eat. We fat fortify everything to keep you in ketosis, and in that way, you induce insulin sensitivity. And the goal, the objective of health, is to restore insulin to its proper place, where insulin is no longer controlling blood sugar directly, it's controlling glucagon, and glucagon is controlling blood sugar. And that is the goal of insulin sensitivity. Insulin's job is not to remove sugar from the bloodstream. That's its backup job. Insulin's primary job is to control fat mobilization from your fat cells and control glucagon's production of sugar from glycerol, fatty acids, and glycerol, and protein, amino acids. And you sure as hell don't want to use your own amino acids to produce that sugar. You want to use the amino acids that you consume, and therefore you have to eat enough, and there's not enough in a vegan diet. So therefore you end up using your own muscles to produce that energy, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to come from your food. So those are the biologic principles. The fat fortification, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. If you can make a vegan mayo or a mayo out of eggs, that's ideal. Heavy cream. Those are my 5 fat friends on a vegan diet, or sorry, on a vegetarian diet. You want to add salt liberally to your food because it regulates your blood pressure, your thirst, and your electrolytes. No fruit, no berries. Berries are just small fruits. Thanks, Eric Westman. He told me that, and I love the line. Berries are just baby little fruits.
Right.
All these keto people say, oh, berries are fine. No, they're not. Not in my book, because you do drive-bys, they activate the addiction. The only fruit you eat on a vegetarian diet is avocados, tomatoes, and olives. And they are a great source of fat. So they're a great way to supplement your diet and enrich the fat content. But you want to avoid all grains, potatoes, rice, yogurts, tortillas, pastas, bread products, popcorn, battered foods, sweets, chips. You want to avoid all the lookalikes. Stay the hell away from keto bread, low-carb pasta, low-carb ice cream. Stay the hell away from that. If pasta made you fat and sick, then why the hell are you trying to recreate and bring back into your life the very thing that was trying to kill you? It doesn't make sense to me. And please don't use alternative flours. Oh, I'm using coconut flour. I'm using almond flour. No, you're not. You're using flour. And you're battering something. You're recreating what tried to kill you. So I am opposed to the alternate flours for the most part. The goal here is to get into ketosis so that you're eating once or twice a day. So that you're following an 18-6 or a 23-1, and even on a high-fat vegetarian diet with some protein supplementation from renewable animal products, that is very feasible. The problem on a pure vegetarian diet is it's difficult to do an 18-6 because you've got to eat so much over such a long time, and you can't fit it into 2 meals a day. So if you supplement with the renewable animal products, it makes it fairly easy to do. You don't want to consume any calories for breakfast. You can have a cup of coffee. I don't mind a little bit of cream in the coffee, but you want to go as deep into the day, riding the wave of ketosis before you eat. So breakfast is the least important meal of the day. You can start with lunch as your first meal, end with an evening meal as your second meal, and no snacking. A snack, and I love this because people are starting to associate this comment with me, a snack is always, always, always an emotional event. And a snack is a calorie-containing thing that you consume for your brain. And I don't care what that snack is, whether it's a piece of lettuce, a piece of cheese, or some ice cream. A snack is a snack. A bridge is something you can drink usually, my cup of coffee, some Crystal Light, some water, that gets you over that moment of mind cleansing that has no calories in it. And you want to create that relationship with that bridge to manage the mind cleansing moments without it being a source of calories. You want to anchor your day consistently around those 1 to 2 eating events per day. So they become routine in your day, and that's kind of where my intermittent fasting comes in. But a meal is sitting down at a table with a plate of food and a knife and fork. If you're eating some vegetarian bar or some kind bar that's made of nuts and honey and chocolates, and that isn't food, Doug. That's a snack. And you're eating it for this, not for this. So if you are too busy to sit at a table with a plate of food and a knife and fork, you're too busy to have a meal, and you're unlikely to die of anorexia or turn into an Olsen twin if you skip that meal. It's not going to happen. Okay? So don't be afraid of, oh, I'm going to get malnourished if I don't eat this meal. It's perfectly fine. Getting used to intermittent fasting is what the body does when it's fat fortified. Cut your food up, chew it really well, take your time eating. Don't be a Rottweiler, be a Chihuahua. You can eat and drink, but try to separate eating and drinking. Drink right until you eat. Try not to eat while you're drinking, and then drink again afterwards. It increases the speed at which you feel full. And very simply, avoid what doesn't agree with you. What doesn't agree with you. You don't have to eat everything. Some things are just based on each person's individual preference, and it's absolutely fine to skip certain things that you don't like. I don't like peppers. I don't eat them. Dessert is part of your emotion management system. Dessert is an activity. Get up and go and do something. Play a game of cards. Take the dog for a walk. Get up and do something fun. You don't need to eat to relax. Occupy your mind and give yourself a mental break. That's what dessert is. Dessert ends the meal with a walk, with a game of cards, as I said, with doing something fun or pleasurable. And never drink your calories. I don't care if it's a soup, if it's a smoothie, if it's a kale smoothie. You're extracting the sugar from the product that you can't extract sugar from. You eat kale, it comes out in your poop. You make it into a smoothie, you're extracting the sugar. If calories run through a fork, it is not okay to drink. So stay away from the soups, the thin soups, stay away from the smoothies, stay away from the shakes and the shots and all the artificial crap. I do not have a protein shake tree in my backyard. Maybe in California you guys do. Okay?
Yeah.
Use those sugar-free fluids as a bridge, and it's okay to use artificial sweeteners if you have to. I'm not a huge fan, but they're okay to have. And then the final piece is, remember that when you remove carbohydrates, you're leaving not only a nutritional deficit, but you're also leaving an emotion management deficit. Find things to do rather than to consume to help you to dissipate your emotional tension. Whether it's something physically active, whether it's something creative like reading a book or playing a musical instrument, whether it's something spiritual, whether it's something that involves human connection, build a diversity of new emotion management skills and tools. Obsess about the fun that you're having by doing it rather than the pleasure you're getting from what you're eating and drinking. Enjoy cooking rather than the high you get from the carbohydrates. And this can become a lifestyle for you. And if you follow these recommendations, you can stick to your vegetarian roots and yet still be healthy without killing a lot of animals.
You've been listening to an episode of the LowCarbUSA podcast. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/LowCarbUSA.